This water is going to migrate back up and inside the whole system. So the idea is, how do we stop it in the cheapest possible way? And by putting this contour in, and every so often going slightly uphill and cutting deeper behind. So if I do a side elevation, you've got a hole, which is, you know, what they were talking about at the Woo Boy. This downside is the high water mark in the rest of the contour. So when it gets full and a big storm happens, it can trickle over at each of these points. And by picking a place like over there, it will run down this way parallel to the thing and then join this system. Now this is what I had learnt very early when I started doing this. I couldn't design something to work with the biggest flood. It always happened. And the way this landscape used to work, it had the ability to stop minimum erosion beginning, but handle an unlimited maximum of water. Now most engineers say that's not possible, but the way this landscape has built the system, it proves that it's possible at all levels. And one of the things that then would happen if we were looking at this, if this just gets enough grass and that contour line is even on the top, it's the same as the Woo Boy. The water falling, if we're looking at a pond system like this and then a bank, the water falling over this bank, what ran in might have been this deep. It fills the pond, and when it runs out, it's that deep. And that's the real reason why all of this works. It's the fact that you spread water, and if anything's floated in here, it's left when that water falls over the levee, it's all left there sitting on the top of that sill. So as these develop, if that top of that line is even enough and we look after it carefully enough, if a flood came down here, firstly it'd break away at these, where this hole is, and that fills with water, so then it trickles over. That then lets water run behind the bank. Then when the water goes over the bank, it's falling on, so we're now looking at this contour line, and the water's coming this way. So when it falls over, we've let water through here and it's running back down into the hollow. As the two lots of water meet, it makes it deeper so it doesn't wash the bank away, because head wall cuts start at a little trickle at the bottom and then they migrate up. When you can get the two lots of water coming together, that doesn't cause this piece to erode, and that doesn't let the head wall cuts run back. Now it's, once you've seen it and you get it into your head how to do it, you think, oh, this was never very difficult. But to stand here and try and explain it, I find it's quite hard. And quite often people who haven't seen it find it very difficult to imagine. And the next thing is, there's a Woo Boy back there, which was already in place. So the second bank back, and I knew we had to end up going down this way. To make this thing safe, we don't want, if we could get this contour full of water, you can then let a trickle amount through down into here, and that'll immediately grass all this up with this mulch and stuff there. If we get a flood in there too early, all the disturbed soil, you just go back to where you started from or worse. But if you can get to a point where this has happened and it's been a nice gentle flow and you've got enough water that you can let it trickle into this for a couple of days, one storm event and it's all fixed. And it's cost you nothing, and you've actually been setting up an irrigation system. And what these valleys used to be were the only sustainable irrigation system that's ever been on the planet. They were able to manage salt all the time. They were managing water fertility movement through every dry period. In other words, this mulch sitting at the top of that was then going to decompose and let fertility go every time it rained. So you had this automatic water and fertility process. And there's another complex piece in that, which when the pressure of a pond above, this water above going this way, went on this water that's holed down here, for some reason grass doesn't drown. So when we had our rivers all perched and the water up in them where they should have been, these floodplains would flood like the Channel country used to. I had relatives back in the 1890s, and they ended up with the biggest house in Adelaide, and it's now Girton College where there's 80 girls live. It was just their home, a little house that they built just to live in. But they were traders, and they used to buy sheep when it was dry down south at 2 shillings a head, they'd get about 5,000 sheep, then they knew where it was getting bad and they were overstocked, and they quite often ended up with 80,000 head of sheep heading north to the Channel country because they knew there'd be feed there for 2 years. And they did it. You can imagine sometimes they had over 100,000 sheep heading north. What a bloody mess they made. I mean, that was also an outcome. But then they'd lamb them down and shear them, and 2.5 years, say, later, they'd walk them back again and sell them for, you know, £5 a head rather than 20 shillings that 2 shillings that they paid for them. But then by 1920, they went broke because it didn't work anymore. So in that short period, this system we're now trying to get you to understand was destroyed by those animals in that Channel country. And I had that Paul Lockyer, the guy that got killed, he was taking photographs of when it rained out there, the cattle plugging through the mud, to really tell people this is not what should be happening. So when we've got cattle in there, we must learn to manage them, which there's plenty of people here know how to tell you how to do that. But we can't ignore the fact that they were not in this landscape. This landscape did not evolve with them. We have to be properly trained to do what has been described to you in this country. And that's the next message. If we don't say that, the likes of Peter Garrett and go, oh, we got to get rid of all those cockies out there, they're wrecking the joint. It's half true, but I said to him one day, I said, listen mate, if you ever lived out there, you need people out there to manage it, or the thing's been destroyed to the point where it won't repair itself. You need them out there, and you won't find another lot to go out there that'll manage it. And so anyway, he backed off, but you know, that's your problem. The thing is that we are our own worst enemies, people on the land, because we don't do enough, we don't talk enough, we don't examine and criticise ourselves enough. Because plenty of other people are criticising you, as you would know, and unless you can answer the questions that they make or they believe, then we're not going to win this argument. But there's no question, I can deliver you about 10 of the best scientists I've met in my life, and they will say, you guys, the land managers in Australia will lead the world if you understand how to make this system work again. Have a good evening.
Yeah.